How would you like to discover why healing and not hustle unlocks limitlessness? Adaku will tell us how to do this. And what's so special about Adaku is she works with high achieving firstborn daughters who are entrepreneurs and executives, women who are often the go to person for everyone else, but silently struggle with burnout and perfectionism. So, Adaku, tell us more about why healing is the key to unlocking limitlessness. Heal Podcast with Lily Patrascu shares longevity and anti-aging techniques to stay young forever, increase energy, overcome addiction, and live your longest, best life ever. Shared by world's most innovative, alternative, and traditional health thought leaders, healers, and doctors. Discover quantum healing strategies to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Well, as you know, I'm sure from a lot of people that you've worked with, a lot of who we are is formed by the experiences we had in our childhood. And those experiences create the personality that we are. So in the way that the brain is designed to protect itself is to anticipate dangers from things that have caused us pain in the past. And if we don't heal and resolve those, we're going to be operating from this limited cage of what might happen based on what was happening in the past, which means that we're not present enough to create life from the future or from the present and live into the type of future we want. Instead, we're recreating our past in our present all the time, which then limits us.
Thank you. So what is the solution? What's the blueprint for someone who wants to achieve their full potential?
Well, the blueprint is to first understand what are the patterns that are holding you back. So the way that our minds are made up, 95% of everything we do is subconscious. So a lot of us, especially firstborn daughters, think that we're in control of our lives. We think that we are dictating how we want things to go. But in reality, we're only in control 5% of the time. 95% is subconscious, is running automatically, and 70 to 80% of that is from limiting beliefs, so painful experiences that we've had. So the blueprint is to use your emotions to get to the root of why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Why am I responding to the way that I'm responding? And once you can unearth what's in that subconscious, you then have choice. Do I continue as I have been and how my brain has been programmed to respond? Or do I choose to step into a new way of being instead of thinking, oh, this is just how I am? No, this is how I've become, and I can become a different version of me in order for me to align to the results that I want to get. And that's really the blueprint, to just keep doing that on a consistent basis, which then guarantees continuous expansion towards our goals and the lives we want.
Thank you. So imagine I'm a perfectionist. How do I stop being a perfectionist so that I can not only become limitless, but also enjoy that limitlessness? What I mean by that is that imagine for a perfectionist, it's almost like there's this unattainable future where it's like you're always striving to be perfect. And it's like you never seem to get there because there's always something that needs to get better. And there's always that little bit that hasn't been done well enough. And, so how does someone overcome that desire to always be perfection and enjoy, the progress?
Be in the journey and enjoy and experience the curiosity of things not being perfect. Great question. The first thing I would say is that we often define ourselves. So you said, I am a perfectionist. The first step would be to not define ourselves and say, okay, well, I seem to have this tendency towards perfection, and then be curious as to why. If I'm not perfect, what am I scared would happen? Because we've created these attributes and perfectionism, especially for firstborn daughters. I don't know if you're a firstborn, Lily, but when you are a perfectionist, for the women that I typically work with, they have this sense of expectation that has been put down from their families because they're the first girl of the family. They've grown up with these subtle signs of expectation in order to be good enough. So in order for them to feel like they're lovable or to feel like they'll be accepted or respected or acknowledged, they feel like they have to be a perfectionist. And if I'm not, then people will laugh at me, people won't respect me. And as humans, we're tribal beings. in. So we're always trying to strive to fit in and be included and be acknowledged. So once you can see, oh, I'm creating this pressure on myself because I feel like I won't be loved if I don't live up to perfection, then you can say, okay, well, am I willing to test out whether I will still be loved without perfection? So firstly, what's the evidence that I have that people love me? My siblings tell me they love me. My friends show up for me. You can then lean on those tangible things, and then you can be curious and brave to step against it. It's not going to be comfortable. So you saying, okay, I've got this project, and rather than waiting until it's like 99% ready, I'm going to put it out at 80%, and it's going to freak me out because my brain's going to think I'm going to die because I'm not going to be loved, and then I'm going to get kicked out of my tribe, and that's going to be the end of it for me. And then you put it out anyway, and then you realize, oh, nothing really happened. I still have my family and friends. I'm still loved. Like, it's getting good feedback. And that's how you start to retrain your brain to let down those fear-based stories, because you're starting to tangibly with your actions create new results that something else outside what you think might happen if you're not a perfectionist will happen.
Thank you. How does someone know when they reach limitlessness?
Well, see, this is the tricky thing. I don't think we ever reach limitlessness. To me, ultimate limitlessness is being enlightened. And at that point, you're not human anymore. You're literally a spirit manifest in human form. So the term limitlessness is leaning into the next edge. So we can continuously expand, but you'll know significantly. So for example, I had a client that came to me, and she had had her business for 9 years. It was making 160K a year. And she was like, I'm trying lots of different things, but I can't seem to move. And within 8 months, we got it to 800,000 in turnover, and she's just gone over 1 million. So the evidence of limitlessness is, as she was shifting herself and her beliefs and taking new actions, she was able to see the immediate response in terms of the results that she was able to create. So limitlessness is something that you can see you're evolving into by the relationships that are healing, by the way that you feel confident in yourself in places that you wouldn't have felt confident in yourself historically, or the financial results that you were able to achieve where you were stuck. So I think that we can look at those external pointers as evidence of our expansion. But ultimate limitlessness is something that some of us might achieve in this lifetime, but it's being enlightened.
Thank you. What kind of routines or habits would someone have to reach limitlessness?
I would say being connected to their emotions, and for high achievers, that's not really something that they're good at. They're good at just kind of pushing through and burying the emotions away and moving forward. But I always say that emotions are a gift from God that are telling us when we're in or out of alignment to our higher selves. And if we're having a low vibrational emotions, we're anticipating fear. And a lot of time that's data for us to look at. So if we can become masterful at being desensitized to the emotions that we're feeling on a day-to-day basis, we can assess when we're projecting something to a situation and use our conscious awareness to ask ourselves, is the story I'm creating is that I'm going to fail if I'm not perfect. But the reality is that perfect is unattainable, and I haven't operated at perfection, but yet I still have this evidence that I've been successful. So it's using your emotions to bring you into the present moment, to look at what's coming up for you, and to disconnect from the story and deal with the reality, so that you have the freedom without the emotional baggage to really just create and step into that joy of ease of being in the moment and in the journey, as you spoke to earlier.
Thank you. Tell us about your 3 case studies of your clients that you have worked with, where they have unlocked limitlessness, and what did that look like for them?
Sure. One of my clients, her name's Kenya. She came to me because she realized that she was in a pattern. So she was a corporate VP, and she was working at one of the corporate banks that are well known. and she would work in a role for 2 or 3 years, find that she wasn't being acknowledged, be doing so much work, working overtime, and she'll get frustrated and then end up leaving and going to another job where she would hope that she would be appreciated. And after joining a startup and leaving for the same reason, she reached out to me and said, clearly I'm the common denominator because I keep leaving all of these jobs. So I'm curious about the work and I want to see what's happening. And I have a process that I take people through called the purpose process to help them figure out the root belief that they've made. So everyone's made some form of root belief in their childhood that is some version of I'm not enough, and it's specific. So hers was I'm not acknowledged. And once we were able to see that she's defaulting at I'm not acknowledged, it was showing up in every single area of her life. And when we were able to see that, we were able to see how she was not putting herself forward for roles and then being mad that she wasn't acknowledged. She was finding evidence where there wasn't evidence that she wasn't acknowledged. And by doing that, it was able to kind of sober her up to the kind of drama that her mind was creating versus the reality. And when we started working together, she was in between roles, applying for roles, and she was going back for sort of VP level roles at director level at corporate banks. And I shifted her attention. I'm like, what do you think you're worth? Because you need to acknowledge yourself. And if you're acknowledging yourself, what job do you think you can do? And that shifted the job she was applying for. So she started going for MD level jobs, which were 2 levels above the place that she was operating. And we were able to get her secured in an MD role in a $30 billion real estate investment company, and she jumped from 350,000 salary to 800,000 salary with benefits. Before she took the job, she told them everything that she wanted, and she told them by when she needed it. They agreed to everything. She wouldn't have been able to do that before. She would have thought, oh my gosh, they're the employer and hopefully I'll work hard and they will offer me this. And like, no, yeah, the acknowledgement starts from you. You lead with what you think you want and deserve, and the world will reflect that to you. And she was able to secure her most senior role, highest pay. She got 129% pay rise within a 3-month process. And those are the leaps that we can make once we get out of our little box of what's possible and not possible. I gave the story about my client Shirley growing her business from 160, but she, in order to do that, she didn't focus on business strategy. She focused on her childhood molestation and her relationship with her parents and healing and resolving that. And we were able to see how the impact of that was showing up in how she conducted business. So she would be wanting to be accepted. So she wouldn't ask certain things. She wouldn't go for certain roles because she wanted to guarantee acceptance, which is the perfectionism. So the risk was low, therefore the reward was low. And once she was able to shift through that, she was able to take bigger leaps. Friend of mine and colleague, Alexa, she has a retreat center with her dad in Mexico, and she was at rock bottom when we met. She just felt like she was holding up the whole business. It wasn't making any profit. Within 1 year, we got it to $1 million in turnover. Again, we were looking at how she had a need to be needed. So she was the bottleneck for everything. So therefore, even though she wanted to work on the business, her patterns were causing her to micromanage and to kind of be in the operations. And by her seeing that really vividly, she was able to start removing herself, which wasn't comfortable, because then it's like, okay, if no one needs me, then who am I? I'm not going to be significant. And as she started shifting that, she was able to upskill her team and have them really perform, and that grew the business because she was able to focus on actual business development. Now she's hardly in the business. She comes to the retreat twice a month, and the rest of the time she's living in Mexico City. She's not president, and that wouldn't have been possible without this work. So we underestimate how much we get in our own way and how much our past and our childhood drives the types of decisions that we make and how we show up as leaders in our work and in our relationships.
Thank you. It sounds like a lot of the work that you do is also around personal awareness and mind shifts. So can you tell us about how you personally changed your mindset or your habits or some routines, or what was it that you changed that got you to transform? And and go on the path towards your own limitlessness.
Okay, I'd be happy to share that. So what I do for my clients is what I've learned to do for myself. Luckily for me, my mum introduced me to meditation at the age of 8. So I've been meditating for a really long time, but I struggled because I felt like sometimes I was grounded and present and able to connect into this part of me that can manifest anything. And then I would flip into this like frustrated, angry, resentful person. And I would say to her, why am I like this sometimes and like this other times? And she would always say, take it to meditation. So in my 20s, I had a whole bunch of situations happen. So I was engaged to get married and I cancelled it 4 months before the day. I was a partner of a recruitment business and I was told to either keep my opinions to myself or leave. So I left. And then I moved in with my mum. And at the time, I wasn't getting along with her because I felt like I didn't have a childhood and I blamed her for that. So I went from about to get married, high-flying job, living by myself, to living with my mom that I'm not getting on with, being single and having no money. And that led me into a depression. And I classed myself as strong. So I thought being depressed was for people who were lazy and had time and were weak. So when it happened to me, I was confused. But it was a blessing in disguise because through my depression and failed suicide attempt, I was introduced to a coach. And when the coach started working with me and he asked me, why do you think you're depressed? I was sort of telling him, I have to do all of these things for my family. They just take from me. And it's like I'm an ATM and a robot. And he said, well, you said you have to. Who told you you had to? I was like, well, who else is going to do it? Of course I have to. And he just kept repeating that question, who told you you have to? And I realized, oh, wow, no one did. I took on that role. And that's when I started to realize I've made certain decisions that have me show up in a certain way that doesn't serve my mental health, my well-being, my success. It just creates all this pressure. So if I've created this, then I can create a different way of being. And that's when my journey really started. So I ended up moving into my car for 2 weeks and then getting a council place just to get my own space while I healed. And as I was healing, I started my recruitment business and I started realizing that as I was shifting, my results were shifting. I healed all of the relationships with my family. I started to build my self-worth because I didn't realize how much I didn't love myself. I thought I was pretty confident, but my self-esteem was really low because my confidence was coming from what I could produce. So it was a superficial confidence. And as I started to shift all of that, just everything in my life started to change. And it's just been a constant commitment to always leaning into, okay, what's that next thing that needs to shift? So in the same way that I shared earlier, that emotions have been what I've had to use to be able to know, okay, when I'm triggered, my past is being projected into the future. And if I can be present enough to know that, then I have like the key to open the door to set myself free and expand into that new space of awareness and limitlessness.
Thank you. Would you say that you also felt like an energetic shift, or was it more like a decision shift where you kind of had like a personal awareness of what was happening, and that's the catalyst that kind of led to your you can say opening up to this new awareness of actually I need to just take different actions?
I think it's a bit of both, right? I think they're one and the same because sometimes it comes first as an energetic shift, like I'm not committed to this anymore and I feel different and I feel like I'm being pulled here. And once that energetic shift has happened, then the thoughts follow in alignment with that. And sometimes it's a conscious decision of, okay, I'm producing these results and I don't like these results. What is it that I'm attached to? And then by having that thought process and seeing what I'm creating and saying, actually, I'm not wanting to do this anymore, that then creates a different thought pattern or a different belief, and then I feel the expansion and the energetic shift from there too. So I think they kind of play into each other depending on where I'm leaning into more at the time.
Thank you. What are some empowering questions or empowering routines or habits that someone can start creating for themselves so that they can start having those kind of like mind shifts and shifts in awareness about what's going on that could lead them onto starting to take the right action towards limitlessness?
Okay, so the first one is what am I making this mean about me? So whenever anyone's experiencing any form of low vibrational emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's fear, whether it's resentment, frustration, boredom, whatever it is, in that moment, the only reason there's a negative emotion is because there's a personalization that's happening about whatever is happening in the moment. And if you can get into the I am statement, so it's like, what am I making this mean about me? I'm not included. You can then see what is coming up for you. Once you can see that, you can then ask yourself, well, what's actually happening? If I took my interpretation out of the situation and I asked myself the reality of the situation, is that what's really going on? And that allows you to kind of take back control of your mind. I kind of describe the mind as an out of control dog. If you've ever seen someone walk a dog where the dog walker's being walked, they're just kind of being dragged from pillar to post. The process of asking yourself questions is training the dog to stay, because instead of going with the thought and believing it's true, you're questioning it and you're looking at the reality. So then your emotions calm down because you're like, actually, no, I might be misinterpreting that. Then you have the ability to step into a new way of being, a new emotion, a new consciousness. So those are the two questions that are key in terms of interrupting that automatic process of defaulting of negative thoughts. The other thing I would ask is, if you're repeating a pattern, I always say that if there's a quote that says, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. And that's more real than we realize. So sometimes we're doing things or we're in cycles that are so painful and we can't fathom that we have anything to do with it. But if it's a repetitive pattern, even though we're trying to change, we can't change, there's something that we get from it. So I always ask two questions. What is the payoff that I'm getting from this? Even if it seems like it doesn't make sense that I'll get a payoff. So for example, I had a client recently who was not making money in her business and she was trying lots of things. And I said to her, what payoff do you have from being broke? She was like, well, when I'm broke, people they praise me and they're like, I know that you're capable. And I'm like, and if you become successful, you stop getting that praise, right? And she was like, yeah, I do. And I don't think I want that. So subconsciously there's these strange payoffs that we don't want to admit to, but once we can own them, then it's like, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I can see that that's what the payoff is, then I can move. And then the other question is, what am I committed to? So asking yourself, am I committed to staying where I am, or am I committed to going through the discomfort of stepping into like being in a relationship or having that business success or being my most confident self? Or do I want to keep playing small and getting these short-term payoffs, which I've been doing for a long time, but I'm no longer committed to? So those are the 4 questions.
Thank you. I found one really powerful question as well is, what am I doing? What am I doing on a daily basis? And what's the impact of that? How am I feeling when I'm doing that? And when you start writing like this big list of the impact of that, and then you have another list, which is what's the impact of that particular impact? Well, there's, you kind of come up with a massive mushroom of the kind, you're not the only person impacted, like your children, your family, your community, your workplace, like the way you come across as a role model or not in your community also gets impacted. So much gets impacted just because you do something or you don't do something. And then I'm thinking about, wow, actually, I have some students who are not taking certain actions because I'm not doing that. And then I'm disempowering them simply by not doing certain things. So when you think about that, the impact of that is like heartbreaking. And then that can be like a negative motivator as well to actually get yourself into gear as well and to be more productive in certain areas where you're not. And also to be courageous in areas where you feel that you cannot be at the moment.
I agree.
Tell us where entrepreneurs can connect with you.
I'm on most social media platforms. So I'm on Instagram as Adaku_Mbagwu, Mbagwu. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, So I'm on most platforms, and my website is www.healedhero.com.
Thank you.
Follow me for more interviews with world's most innovative health changemakers to live your healthiest life ever.